But today we will talk about what we consider as Congolese genocide. And the Congolese genocide essentially encompasses all the conflict, the military conflict that have been going on, taking place in Eastern Congo. And I was just, again, doing some research before this presentation about the estimated number of casualties and death during this, conflict, this whole period of violence, and then the estimated number of deaths that this period of violence, so all the military conflict have caused, amount to 4.5 million. So we have 5.4 million deaths that the violence and all the military conflicts have caused in the Congo. So let's start with, we'll start with the historical background. So how did we get to this? Because the situation now, as you know, is very, very concerning and out of control. So the first part of this presentation will talk about the background information, the history of this conflict, and then the second part, which will be led by my colleague Eminence, will talk about recommendations as observers and analysts of the situation. What are we recommending to U.S. policymakers on how to help out with this situation and bring tangible and lasting solutions to this problem, this issue. So let's start with history, right? So as we know, 1994, there was a change of regime in Rwanda. So the Tutsi were taking over and ousting the Hutu regime. So it started with the assassination of President Habyarimana, and then ultimately that sparked the civil war in Rwanda between the Hutu and the Tutsi. And then, as you see, the Tutsi prevailed, and then so the Hutu had to leave Rwanda because they found themselves in a position of weakness, and they could not sustain any power or any sense of safety in Rwanda, because the Tutsi were going after them. So what happened there is that thousands of Hutu refugees who were unsafe in Rwanda migrated into Congo. And we see that in 1990, especially in the beginning of 1996, thousands of them entered the Congo as refugees. So the issue here is that most of them entered with weapons, arms, and these operations were, there is a lot of books, publications about the operations that took place around this time. And one of the readers that I'll recommend is Charles Owana. Charles Owana has written so many very insightful articles about the operations here. And one of the failure of this operation was that was to allow those Hutu refugees to enter the Congo with weapons. So what happened there is that, so there was a new regime in Rwanda, the Tutsi regime, that was led by Kagame, and then so the regime, the Tutsi regime in Rwanda quickly realized that the Hutu refugees, although they were no longer present, physically present in Rwanda, but they were still posing threat while they were outside Rwanda in Congo, the neighboring country. And then they try to think, especially at this time, they try to think about ways they can make sure that they can make sure that these Hutu refugees are not posing threat to them, are fully neutralized, and they're not going to come back and then try to rise against the Tutsi regime. So what happened there is that the Kagame thought about maybe putting in place a regime in Congo that will help them control the situation, right? That will help them really neutralize these Hutu refugees and making sure that there's no threat coming from the Congo. And we see that in 1996 when the Rwandan forces, of course led by Kagame, supported Laurent Kabila in 1996 to overthrow Mobutu. And finally, the 1990s, and that led to the 1997 coup that overthrew Mobutu. And then so I'll go very quickly on this. And then so Mobutu was overthrown in 1997, and then Kabila was put into took power, and then we see that Kabila, when he took power, these Rwandan forces and that were supporting him, when they finally got in Kinshasa, they wanted more. They wanted full control of the Congolese military. They wanted control over the security, the national security of Congo, and then they wanted to, of course, hold on to those key government positions, and that also sparked another civil conflict or war in the Congo. At that same time, you have another rebel group in the northeast of Congo called MLC that tried to oppose Kabila, Laurent Kabila, and then essentially telling him that he brought these people, these Rwandan people in Congo, and then now these people are trying to take over the country. And then while not really not really working for the interests of Congolese people. So finally, in 1998, Kabila tried to really downplay the conflict, internal conflict between himself and then his Rwandan friends that wanted more from the Congo. But the situation could not be contained. And then these people finally declare war against Kabila because Kabila was just not giving them enough. So they finally left, for most of them, left the positions, government position that they held with Kabila, and then declare war against the Kabila regime in 1998 on precisely August 2nd, 1998. So these people declare war against Kabila. And this Rwandan people were now joined by people from the Mobutu regime, and then they formed what a group called RCD, and then RCD was the one group that was really ruling the country, the eastern part of the country, and And then that situation lasted for a couple of years. 1998, so started 1998. 1999, Kabila tried to negotiate with the MLC in the south northeast, and with the RCD in the eastern part, but those attempts failed, and they could not really reach a consensus. And finally, Kabila was assassinated 2001. So after this failed failure, he was finally assassinated January 2001, I'm sorry. And Joseph Kabila took over. And you guys recall, so even when Joseph Kabila took over, the country was still really torn apart. So we had the RCD controlling the eastern part. You have the MLC controlling the northeastern part. So there were essentially three separate administrations running the country. So Kabila took over 2001, and he struck a deal. He was able to start negotiation immediately when he took over in 2001, but he was able ultimately to strike a deal with the rebel groups, the RCD and the MLC, and then that resulted in a new regime, the 1+4 regime, as known in the Congo, where Kabila was the president, and then he had 4 vice presidents, and then those 4 vice presidents eventually came from the rebel groups, MLC, the RCD, and then they formed that regime. And however, one thing that should be noted here is that as these major rebel groups rose between 1998 to 2002, there were also local groups that tried to organize themselves into like military militia, and to defend themselves, to defend their people, to defend, like normally in villages, they will, because thing also with Hutu coming into Congo with all these weapons. So weapons were, was just spread and around the region. So most of these people, the local groups were able to have access to those weapons, and then now they organize themselves into small militias to defend themselves, to defend their villages, and they're called Mai Mai, and so the primary purpose here is that to defend themselves from either the Hutus or the RCD or the MLC, those major rebel groups. And then what we see over the years is that they became more prominent in the whole region. So what happened in 2002, Kabila now was able to strike that deal with the major rebel groups, RCD and MLC. And finally, we have this new regime where Kabila is the president and 4 vice presidents. And what happened during that time, 2002, and up until 2006, before the first elections that we had in 2006, is that there were a lot of integration into the army. So these rebel groups now that are part of the government, because they are, so and so united in one government. So there were a lot of integration. So these rebel groups had to integrate the army, the national army, Congolese national army, and that integration also seemed to be problematic because people, those soldiers, or the commanders, they will integrate Congolese army, but they will still have the loyalty toward Rwandan people. The Rwandan friend were supporting them. So then that resulted in Congo really having an army that could not be 100% totally loyal to the country. And so these integrations went on, as I said, from beginning of the Kabila regime, 2001, 2002, up until 2006. And then what we see after the first election, 2006, now Kabila took over. Now Kabila was able, through the elections, to get rid of the full vice president, because he was elected president, and then a new, because the constitution was also the constitution was also voted upon, and then that constitution gave full power to the president, who will be able to form his government with the National Assembly, the parliament. And then, so Kabila was able to form his own government with the parliament 2006. So after 2006, so what happened is that these integrated forces that joined, of course, the National Army, rose up against Kabila, saying that although we are integrated, but we don't feel like we are being considered. We are being considered. We're getting enough recognition and advancement in the army. And one of the first one is, I'm not going to name all of them here, but first one, Kundabatware, they form another rebel group, the CNDP, I think around 2008, 2009, and then just rising or rebelling against the Kabila regime. And then Kabila once again was able to strike a deal with this group, and then so they were able to not fully disappear, but again being reintegrated into the army. But their commander, Kundabatware, I think he left. He never actually stayed in the Congo and went to Rwanda. And then with the Kabila regime, this happened again around 2012, 2013 with the M23 group. And then the M23 group was basically, they rose up against the Kabila regime, saying that Kabila did not honor the agreements that he signed with the CNDP, as far as giving them more power, more control of the army. And then so they in 2012, 2013, they formed this rebel group to again fight against the Kabila regime. But this time, Kabila did not really want to go back to a table of negotiation, but Kabila tried to fight them back, to neutralize them, and then somehow he was able to get them under control in 2012, 2013. But one thing that we should keep in mind here is that both CNDP and M23, they were allegedly supported by Rwanda. And as I said, most of their commanders, after negotiations and realizing that they cannot sustain this conflict, they will usually flee into Rwanda and then get some sort of protection there. So lastly, we see with Kabila leaving power 2018, and what we have been observing is that this whole conflict in the Eastern Congo started with security started for security purposes. So we see that the Rwanda regime wanted to control the Congolese government and make sure that there's no threat to the regime coming from the Congo. So that was the initial purpose of this conflict. But now this has shifted into economic reasons. What do I mean by that? I mean that so during what I say the second term of Kabila presidency from 2011 to 16. So there were a lot of minerals that were discovered in the eastern part of Congo. And then, of course, with minerals, now multinational companies involved in tech industry, essentially, and so they were able to so they wanted to see how to operate, how to take advantage of the minerals, because again, even though Kabila was able to fight and neutralize CNDP, M23, but that region was never be under full control, was never under full control of the Congolese army. So what these multinational companies did is to try to use those local, remember we talk about the local rebel groups, try to use them so they can have access to the minerals and export them illicitly. So export them without going through the appropriate chains, without paying taxes, and that's how we found ourselves today in a situation where there are reports of multinational companies, businesses, some of them are even located here in the US and in Europe, trying to use those local rebel groups. And then some of them even using or working with members of the Congolese army to be able to access minerals and export them. And then now those rebel groups, they are creating chaos in villages in that part of the country because they want to be able to control territory so they can of course, use that to make sure that the multinational companies they're working with are having access to the minerals. So what's going on today is that, and also we see that even Rwanda is also involved in this whole operation, this whole business, and they try to legitimize it by signing contract with the Congolese government. But we all know in the report they're saying that even Rwandan forces are coming into Congo, not only to try to go after the Hutu refugees and trying to eliminate any threats that they can pose, that the Hutu refugees can pose to the regime, but also getting access to the minerals and trying to smuggle them into Rwanda. So I'll finish this part with something very useful when we analyze this situation is that there are actually no many I want to say official, very reputed official report from reputed organizations. There has not been very thorough investigation into all this act of violence that happened in the Congo. But we have one piece, one big report that we CDI and most organizations rely on to really recount what is really transpired during all this time is that report is from the UN, the High Commissioner Office for Human Rights. It's called the Mapping Project Report. I'm sure you all have heard about it. But that that report only covers incidents that happened between 1992 and 2003. But again, as I explained here, the conflict is still ongoing. So we can say that the mapping project report only covered part of it. And I want to say subjectively, a very minimal part of it, of this conflict. But what is more important about this report is that this report actually was able to identify perpetrators, people that actually committed act of violence. By act of violence, I mean mass killings, torture, rape. And this report is very important because we can see, it's a very inclusive report, and it establishes what I say, criminal responsibilities for those people. But unfortunately, and my colleague Eminence will talk about it in the recommendations, that this report has now been used. I mean, we can see clearly that the report identifies perpetrators, but like the report is not being used by either the Congolese justice or international tribunals, court. My colleague will talk about this, but that's just very, very, very unfortunate. So we can say here that impunity remains endemic in the Congo, because all of these people, they're known through this report, but they've never been brought into justice. So that's a very, very unfortunate situation there. And I will emphasize on this again, that this conflict is ongoing. As we speak, these local rebel groups are causing death, violence in that part of the Congo.